It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege and honor of interviewing the Southern Oregon's head women's wrestling coach, Coach Gabby Weyhrich. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Can you
Good.
talk about how you knew that you wanted to get started in coaching in college women's wrestling?
Yeah, it definitely wasn't my first choice. That's what I tell everybody, right? I didn't always want to be, a college wrestling coach. I knew I always wanted to be involved, but when I went to college and I had a great head coach myself, Sam Schmitz, he kind of just changed my life, right? He showed me, how to fall in love with the process of getting better and self-growth, and helped me find my faith. And, he helped me with a lot of characteristics that I needed to change within myself. And after seeing what he, did for me, I decided like, hey, I want to do that for other athletes, right? And other people. And so that's when I finally just gave in and decided like, okay, I could be really good at this job. Like I love people. I wrestled for a while. And this is kind of where I belong. And I've been doing it since then.
Of course, coming from a background of wrestling and a family of wrestling, what was it like getting into wrestling?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to remember, right? Because I was 4 years old at the time. I was little. My dad, he always wrestled, grew up in a wrestling club and wrestled in high school. And so when he had kids, he wanted to get them started in, like the local wrestling club. And he started my older brother, Marcus. And at the time, I was 4 years old. And I always say I was playing Barbies on the side of the mat, right? And having to sit in the hot room and watch practice. And being a little kid, I guess I was very hyper. And I just asked, like, hey, like, can I do this? And at first, my dad and mom said, no, absolutely not. But then about halfway through the year, they let me, try it. And since then, we've never really looked back, right? And I've been doing it nonstop and I love it. And so it's hard to remember like what it was like getting into it, right? And thinking about all the years that came after that, I mean, there's some really, really tough times. Like wrestling's a really hard sport, but within those tough times, like it just built me into the person that I am. And so yeah, I definitely can name a lot of times where I was like, dang, I don't want to do this anymore. But also a lot of times that I was like, man, this is, the coolest thing I get to do is wrestle in my life. So, yeah.
What was that experience like for you going to McKendree and getting to compete in collegiate wrestling?
It was awesome. At the time, growing up, I was one of the only women that wrestled in Nebraska. I mean, we're talking women wrestling hadn't really developed at that point, right? It wasn't sanctioned. I was kind of the only one. And so I didn't really know how big women's wrestling was until I started to get, like my sophomore, junior, senior year of high school. I went to Fargo. I seen that there was other really good women athletes, women wrestlers. And then I started looking into schools, and honestly, I didn't even really know what schools existed. I knew that there was a school in my town, Midland University, that had women's wrestling, but they weren't developed enough for me to want to go there. And then, I was kind of looking at staying closer to home, so I checked out a few schools. But then when Sam, called me and gave me a call, and I got to meet him and go visit McKendree, I just kind of knew like that was the place, and not really the place, but the person who I was going to trust to get me where I needed to go. Right away, I had a pretty good connection with him. He was funny, and he made me laugh, and definitely didn't know what I was getting myself into. He ended up being crazy, but a good crazy. He was a tough coach. And so yeah, it was a great time wrestling for McKendree and helped me grow up. I was 8 hours away from home. I couldn't go home on the weekends or, depend on my parents. To be honest, I didn't even know how to do laundry when I went to college, which is absolutely insane. I was always spoiled. So definitely needed that experience just to go away, go wrestle at the college level, get humbled a little bit, right? I always thought I was like the only woman wrestler that knew how to wrestle, which is so silly, but being from where I was, it makes sense. And so yeah, it definitely was needed to help me grow as, not only a wrestler, but just as a person.
Of course, going to McKendree, what was that experience like first putting on that singlet for them?
It was fun. That was my first time ever being a part of a women's wrestling team. And so, obviously I'd put on lots of singlets before, but it's different when you're standing at a duel or standing at a tournament with a whole bunch of beautiful, strong women behind you, right? When you've never had that. Like I always had stinky boys around me, right? And not that they weren't great or anything growing up, but it was just awesome finally feeling like I fit in, right? Like I belonged there. We had, battled together in practice, lots of laughs, lots of tears, lots of sweat, right? And then we got to stand behind each other. And I finally felt like I was fighting for people, not fighting against people, right? And so it was a good feeling. Definitely was a lot of fun, a lot of good memories there.
While at McKendree, what was that experience like for you as a wrestler, and what were some of your accomplishments?
It was good. I mean, I can't say anything, anything bad to be honest. I had a great college experience. There was times that, like I said, humbled me, right? It took a couple years to kind of get in the groove. There's times that honestly I didn't get along with the head coach and I love him now, right? He's like a dad to me, but there's times that we fought and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm gonna go home to Nebraska. I don't want to be here." But I think that's just normal, right? Like when you're away from home, like everyone kind of battles that a little bit. And so as the years progressed, right, and I started buying into what he was saying and buying into the program and realizing like, all right, this team is really good and he is really good at coaching and he knows what he's talking about. Once I fully dove into that and stopped just dipping my toes in the water, I started seeing success. And so I guess some of my accomplishments, right, would just be pretty much I got second at any tournament you could ever think of. Never could just pull it off, but I got second at, the U20 World Team Trials. I got second at Pan Am's when I represented US. Got second at the U23 World Team Trials. Got second at the WCWAs. So, I had a lot of success, a lot of second success, but I can't really take back anything that I did or regret anything. I worked hard. I put my head down and I try to be the best athlete and person I could be while, growing up. So, yeah, those are some of the things.
For you, what was that experience like transitioning into being a wrestler to getting into coaching and coaching at your alma mater?
It was a little bit difficult at first. I think anytime that you are teammates with, athletes that are around you and then you move into a coaching role, you have to be very careful on how you take on that responsibility. I think if you come at it in kind of a power hungry way, people aren't going to respect you, right? And I knew that. And so I really listened to Sam and the things, he told me and how I should go about it, like how I should separate myself, move out of the locker room, kind of start being more of like a medium person. I was in the middle. I worked between the athletes and him. And then as the years went on, it became easier because I wasn't teammates with the girls. I could start, some of the freshmen, I could start being more of a coach figure. But that's where I think I started to learn like coaching with love because that's all I could do. Like I wasn't going to be like, I don't know, like he was the bad cop, I was the good cop. I couldn't be the bad cop. And so I think that's what, honestly, that time in my life and that transition really teached me how to like love people and how to coach people and care. And I think I've carried that on now as a head coach.
Of course, while at McKendree as a coach, what were some of the things that you were able to accomplish?
I mean, we accomplished a lot. It was fun, right? My first year being a coach, we won our first national title. And then, eventually we won a couple more after that. And, those things are awesome. Obviously, everybody wants to win national titles, national dual titles, but even more than that, just I continued to grow as a person. I continued to learn how to communicate. Before being a coach and before, even going to college, I feel like I was very judgmental, things like that, that just weren't always great to be around, right? I wasn't the best person to be around. And so I think like my biggest accomplishment is just the person I became through all of it, right? There's a lot of adversity and things, and I just really am proud of how much love I can show people and how I'm not that judgmental person anymore, that I have a lot of sympathy, empathy, whatever, I never know what word to use, for people. And I think when you're working with people, that's important. So besides the national titles, which are really cool, I'm just very proud of like the person I am.
While at McKendree, what was that experience like for you as a coach, getting to compete in the NCAA women's national titles in 2020, 2021, and 2022?
It was fun. The first time was probably the best, right? The first time you win something and you've watched a program just like go through the trenches, right? Like I watched it from the beginning. I was a part of the first team ever at McKendree, and I watched Sam and all the hours he put in, and all the work we did and all the craziness that happened, in the 6 years it took to get to that, national title. It was really, really fun the first time around. I really, I will never forget it. It's just, we had worked so hard and we got rid of some of the people that were holding us back. And then when we did it, it was just kind of like finally, right? Like, like Sam deserved it, our team deserved it. And I remember just giving him a hug. And honestly, I don't even know if he cried, but I was pretty like emotional because I was like, just so proud of him and proud of our team. The years to follow after that, it was still awesome. But the once you win, you realize how quickly like winning goes away. You win a national title, you do something big, you celebrate, you get on the bus, you go home. People care for like 2 seconds, and then you go back to work. So really what you learn is like all of the work and all of the winning, it's for you. And so that's why you have to fall in love with the process, because it only lasts for a couple seconds, honestly, and then it's gone. But yeah, that's pretty much how I feel about all those years, right? It was a great time, a lot of laughs, a lot of tears, but definitely wouldn't take any of it back.
Of course, what was that experience like as a coach, knowing that obviously all of your hard work, even as an athlete, paid off for that first national championship in 2020?
Yeah, it felt good. I mean, there's a part of me, I was still young when we won our first national title, and I was an assistant coach that was like, dang it, I wish I was part of the team when this happened, right? Like, I wish I would have got to do it. But that's because I was young and I still was in that mindset, almost that selfish mindset. But, I was really, really proud. Like I said, I think more than even being proud of our team, I was just really happy for, my head coach. We just had that relationship, and I just seen how hard he worked and all the emotion he put in it, all the time he put in it. And so, I think I was just overwhelmed with like happiness and knowing like he did everything that he could, and like I was very blessed to be under someone that I could learn from like that. And so that's kind of, I think, the feelings I had, right? Is like, yeah, the hard work paid off, and yeah, we were all part of it, but I was also just really proud of him and his ability to lead a women's team and, start it from the ground up.
Of course, what was that transition like for you, leaving your alma mater to come to Southern Oregon and build that program?
I was scared, but I was ready, to be honest. It had been a lot of years. I was at McKendree for 9 years, so wrestled for 5, coached for 4. As a coach, I learned a lot from Sam, and I really dug into like, even listening how he did interviews, listening how he talked to the girls, watching some of the mental games that, he not that he played, but like the things that you have to do to prepare athletes. And so I spent a lot of time paying attention to those things. And I think assistants sometimes don't do that. I don't think they fully immerse themselves in the fact that, like, okay, I'm an assistant for a reason. I have to learn because when it's my time, I'm going to be ready. And I can truly say, like, once I decided I wanted to do this job, I fully did that, right? I trusted everything he said. I had his back. And in that process, it helped me learn. And the more I, just kind of bought into him as a coach, even though I was, being an assistant coach, the more responsibilities he gave me. And the more responsibilities he gave me, the more it allowed me to mess up, which allowed me to learn. And so it was just a continuous process of really learning and growing. And yeah, so when I got the job at Southern Oregon, I think the hardest thing was actually spreading my wings and getting away from him. Right. I had depended on him so much for 9 years. Like that's like a dad. So when I got to Southern Oregon, I was ready, right? I had prepared. I knew how to, be a coach. There's a lot of things that I've come upon that I didn't know. Of course, it's always going to happen. But for the most part, right? Like I was ready, and I was ready to do it on my own. And I'm glad I made the decision when I did to, separate myself from Sam and be confident and, go into being a head coach. And it's been great.
Coming to Southern Oregon, what was that feeling like for the first time as a head coach stepping onto that wrestling mat?
Oh, what was it like? Gosh, I guess I felt like finally I wasn't, I mean, this sounds a little bad, but I had done so much work as an assistant coach. And not even like the administrative side or anything like that, more just the relationship side with the athletes. I had done so much behind the scenes. It felt so good to be a head coach because I felt like all the work that I had done as an assistant and as a head coach now, I didn't feel like I was living in the shadows anymore. Obviously there's a good portion of my life that's needed. Like you have to do that. But when I finally was like able to step up on a line with my team and say like I've prepared them, it's just a new level of confidence to watch your athletes go out there and know that, that you have put different things in their head or in their technique toolbox, right? That you can just be proud of. And knowing that they trust me and I trust in them, that was a different type of feeling that I just never had as an assistant. And so yeah, it was a good feeling. It felt like, okay, like people know that this is my team, right? And it sounds kind of, I don't know, kind of corny, but that's how it felt.
Of course, what has that been like, obviously getting to lead the Southern Oregon and knowing that it's your team and stuff?
Yeah, it's been great. I couldn't ask for more. I love Southern Oregon University. This school has been awesome. It actually makes me jealous that I didn't go to a school like this. Even though I loved McKendree, it's just this school really has topped it. Like the community, the support, the facilities, like everything has just been great. And so it's been fun, growing with these girls and recruiting people here and knowing them that I'm giving them an opportunity, right, to not just wrestle, but like be in a good place with good people. And so yeah, I've had a really great time so far. There hasn't been very many negatives. I mean, I'm sure there's always negatives some places, but like for the most part, I really love it here and I could see myself leading teams here for a long time.
Can you talk about, of course, the culture that you've started to build for Southern Oregon's women's wrestling?
Yeah, I think that's the thing, to be honest, that I'm most proud of is the culture that we have built. It took me, about a year to get this idea of this family, right? And that's something that we had at McKendree when I was wrestling is we had family written all over our sweats, but as time went on, that we kind of lost that, right? We lost that idea. And so when I came, and I was the head coach, I knew that that was probably the most important thing for a women's wrestling team to have is that culture, right? Women thrive on energy and being loved. And so, I first had to get the trust of my athletes. And, I do that by setting standards and expectations and, loving them through text messages, through meetings in my offices, through ice cream dates, right? Things like that. But then, after, you build that trust, then you really, really start, you know, preaching family constantly like hey, we're a family. Like you might not always like each other, but we love each other and we support each other, and this is how we're going to be. And we say family every day when we break it down. You have an issue with someone, you communicate with them. Like we're not going to be a team that fights against each other, right? Because this sport is way too hard. Like we have to be a family that fights for each other. And so the culture, I think it's very noticeable. I think that's one thing that if recruits come on visits or when we're at different arenas or whatever, um, people might think we're annoying, but we just love each other. And I think that the culture is very obvious here.
As a new head coach, what has it been like, obviously building the coaching staff around you and the athletes around you?
I would say that, it's been a challenge and not so much the athletes, right? The athletes kind of were ready to buy in. They had a lot of coaching turnover, like I said. Obviously you're always going to come with challenges and things like that, but they were just ready for a coach to like give their all to them. And not that the coaches in the past did not do that, they did, but like I said, the men's coaches, they were running two teams. Like that's hard. And as a female, it's a little bit different. Like I probably give a little bit different love that they were just searching for. And so that was good. I think the challenge honestly came in finding my coaching crew, right? Like who is going to, be behind my back no matter what decision I make. And the first year I came over here and, I had a couple assistants that were awesome. They were so good. Anicia Ramirez and Olivia Pisano, they helped me a ton. They both had been here at the school. They could show me the ropes, right? But as you start coaching with people, you realize like you just have a different mindset or a different relationship with wrestling, or you think about things differently. And so, Coach Liv, she stayed around with me for 2 years now, and she has completely bought into how I run this program and the things I, do. And I've completely bought into her because she's like the most motivational person ever. And she's given me that kind of touch that I didn't have. And so we complement each other really, really well. And then moving into this year, I had a lot of athletes, Joy Lewandowski, Grace Kristoff, Natalie Reyna, they all wanted to coach, right? They wanted to stick around, finish their degree, give back to Southern Oregon for helping them finish such an awesome senior year. And so they've been coaching with me. And as much as I've known them as athletes, I never knew them as coaches, and they didn't know me. And so, of course, there's going to be times where we disagree or we bicker a little bit because it's a whole different relationship. And then I think back to like, working with my head coach when I was an assistant and how much she would frustrate me sometimes and things like that. And it's like, it's gonna happen. It's like a relationship, right? You spend so much time together. And so I would say that's probably where the challenges have been the most, is for me learning how to communicate and teach people under me. Like I've never had to do that. And so I always tell them like, I'm not good at it and I'm sorry. I'm a control freak and I'm sorry. I want to do everything myself. And so that's definitely been a learning curve the last 2 years, but I'm very grateful that they've stuck by my side, and they've really supported me in every decision I've made or anything that I've done. So
What does a typical wrestling match look like for you as a head coach versus for your athletes?
like kind of like how we approach the day.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you're asking? So basically what it would look like is it kind of depends, right? Like for us, our team, we travel a lot. We have to because, we want to see competition. So if it is a tournament that we're traveling far to, we usually leave probably like on a Thursday, right? We get up at 5 a.m. Actually, we get up at like 3 a.m. Our flight always leaves at 5 a.m. and we have a long day of travel. That's the first thing. And so we get on a plane, we travel, we make jokes, we hang out in airports, right? It's a good time. And then, we get to the location that we're traveling to, usually have like a day or the night where we cut weight or the girls have a practice. And then there's always a day in the middle between when we get there and competition because they have to get acclimated. With that much travel, it's like there needs to be a day where they can cut weight and kind of relax and not have to worry about anything. So that would be like a Friday, right? And then on Saturday, right, when we're going into competition, we basically it's so routine. You just show up. The girls know exactly how they're supposed to act. I'm really big on that. Like walk in like an army, know where you're supposed to sit, don't ask questions, check your weight, do what you're supposed to do, and then warm up hard and then wrestle and put your hands on someone and fight and have fun. Because at that point, it's like there's nothing else we can do. And so yeah, I don't know. I think the competition part's the fun part, right? We put so much work in that when it's match day or preparing for a match, it's like we're just having a good time. We're listening to our music, right? Everybody knows what they're supposed to be doing, and we see if we can beat some people up, and then we come back to the drawing board. So it's pretty good.
Who are some of the teams in your conference that you compete against each week?
So we have Menlo College in our conference from California. We have Providence in our conference from Montana, Great Falls, Montana. We have Evergreen in our conference. We have Vanguard in our conference, Simpson in our conference. But I would say our top two competitors as of now in our conference are Menlo and Providence. They're tough teams, a lot of good girls. We're all ranked right now in the top five. And so our conference is tough. It's like if we get out of our conference, we're going to do pretty dang good, especially if we win our conference. So.
Of course, what is that like getting to compete against those conference teams like Providence?
It's fun. We love Providence. I would say that's like our sister team. That's kind of weird to say, but we have a lot of respect for them and what they do at their program. I think they do it right. Not that all teams don't get to do it right, but I think we agree on a lot of the morals and the way to run a program. Me and the head coach over there, Matt Atwood, and so we love when we get to compete against them. It's always fun. There's no like pettiness or anything like that. It's really just like, hey, good luck and let's get after it. And then after, our girls are always talking and laughing, and you don't see that a lot because of the competitiveness, but we just know that like they're an awesome team that do the right things. Like if there's anyone else that we want to win, it's going to be Providence. And we've kind of created that relationship with that team. And I don't know how it happened, but I love it. And, even when we were down there doing them a couple days ago, me and the coaches at Providence, we went out to breakfast and, got to kind of bullshit around and it was fun. And so, yeah, I respect them a ton. And I think every time we, compete, it's just friendly competition.
Of course, what is that like, obviously, competing against those non-conference teams like Indiana Tech and your alma mater of McKendree?
I think competing against them, it's a change up for us, right? Because we're so far away, we get to see the teams around here in our conference and we get to duel them and see them at multiple tournaments, right? But when we head out to the Midwest, like we're on a business trip, like we're going to see Indiana Tech and Life, and we're going to see, some of those NCAA teams, even like Iowa, McKendree, right? We want to see the best of the best. Where women's wrestling is right now, and this is my opinion, it's a pretty level playing field, right? Like we can compete with the NCAA teams. It doesn't matter, right? And so when we're going out to compete against those teams, we're just trying to get good competition and see where we're at. For the people who are in the NAIA, we're trying to get allocations, we're trying to get ranks, we're trying to beat them. And we definitely look at it more as like a business trip, right? Like, hey, we got some work to do. This is what the job is. Let's go get it done. And then when we get it done, we come home. But we also enjoy it because it's not like wrestling the same people every weekend or every, other weekend. And so, yeah, I think it's awesome. It's fun. It shows you how competitive women's wrestling is.
What does that recruitment process look like for those prospective women wrestlers out there looking to get into the sport?
I think it's different depending on the school, right? And the process that you go through. But my biggest thing that I always say is if you're a woman wrestler in the sport right now and you're in high school, don't be afraid to reach out to programs. Like, for someone like me as a coach, to be honest, like I just want people who want to be at this school. Obviously, I'm looking for accolades and like, I'm looking for athletes that are have technique and conditioning and are good people, things like that. But like when someone shows interest in our school, like of course I want to talk to them, right? Like I want them to be a part of what we do because that's the first thing is just wanting people who want to be here. And so I would say like, just always make sure those younger athletes are reaching out to colleges and don't expect them to always reach out to them. It doesn't mean we don't want them. It means that like there's a lot of them. And, we only are one person or a couple people on coaching staffs. Like I want to talk to people. I love when people reach out to me. And so, yeah, that's the first thing. And then the second thing is always go on visits. I think it's super important that recruits go and visit more than one school, even like at least a few, get your top three and then go visit them just because, every place has the good, bad, and uglies, right? And every place does things differently and you don't really know where you fit until you go and you get to hang out with the athletes and you get to talk to the coach and you get to kind of read through all the things that they say, right? And so that would be like my best advice and how I think the recruitment looks for younger girls.
For my listeners that don't know, what is women's wrestling and how do you compete in it?
Women's wrestling is just like men's wrestling, right? But we actually wrestle freestyle, which is just a different style of wrestling in America right now. Growing up in like clubs or boys wrestling in high school, even girls wrestling high school, it's all folk style, which just means the scoring is different. We wrestle freestyle, which is actually the Olympic style, and so it's not WWE, right? We're not throwing chairs at each other. It is, just a actual, I guess you would say sport. I don't know how to explain it any differently just because I've been a part of it for so long. But it's a sport that's going to teach you more than any other sport, I believe, in life. And so if you want to be a part of it, the best way to do it is, if you're young, get in a kids club, or if you want to start your kids, get in a kids club. Or, just going out for your middle school or high school team, is a good place to start.
Of course, what does that official visit look like at Southern Oregon for the women's wrestling program?
Yeah, if someone wants to come on a visit here, usually what happens is like, they decide on some dates that we're both like, I'm gonna be here and we're not traveling. And then, I kind of just set them up with a couple days of hanging out, right? Getting to do what we do. I don't roll out no red carpet, pretend like we're something we're not, because like I said before, if they want to be here, I want them to be here. And so when they come on a visit, they pretty much do everything with us that we would normally do. They stay the night in the dorms with the girls, they hang out. I think the girls love doing like karaoke in their dorm rooms. They're weird, but they do things like that, right? They go around town, they show them the town, they practice with us, and pretty much I just tell them like, hey, pretend like you're a student for a couple days, go to class, get a good feel of what it's going to be like, right? And they spend a lot of time with our athletes, and not as much time with me. Not that I don't want to hang out with them or I don't want to take them out to eat, but like at the end of the day, I'm not going to be around them 24/7. They're going to have to hang out with the girls. And so yeah, they have to like how I coach and like how I communicate, but they also have to like the girls that are on the team. And so I make sure that they spend a lot of time with those girls. And, with us, we have 50 girls. So I try to make sure they spend a time with different groups because we have a whole bunch of different types of people on this team. So there's a place for everybody. And so yeah, that's kind of what it looks like.
As a head coach, what is it like seeing those freshmen put on that singlet and represent Southern Oregon for the first time?
Freshman putting on the singlet, it's exciting because it's usually the first time you've got to see them compete. You watch them in high school when you're recruiting them, you can watch flow films or all that, but you don't get that actual one-on-one feeling with them when they're nervous, they're, jumping around before the match, what's going through their head. And I love being the person that's there with them and being able to talk them through it and pump them up. And then they always surprise me. Somehow they always surprise me. I watch them every day in the room, but they go out there and, whether it's how we prepare the girls or just, that excitement of being a freshman and getting to wear the singlet and getting to compete, they just always surprise me. And it's usually a good surprise, right? And it's like, man, this is going to be exciting. I have 4 years at least with this girl. I can't wait to see the end product. And so, yeah, it's exciting.
As a coach, what is it like seeing those freshmen achieve those milestones like those first pins?
Exciting. I don't know how else to explain it, right? Like it's fun watching them win their first college match. It's fun watching them, maybe get their first tech or, even if you go smaller than that, like hit the high crotch that we've been working on in practice, right? It's the little things that make this sport so awesome. And so I'm always just really, really proud and excited for them. I think the best thing about being a coach is when you finally see their confidence starting to come out, right? It's like, okay, you know what's in there, and it's just like you just want to shake them. Like, come on. Like you're so good, just believe in yourself. And when you see that flip switch or that switch flip, it's a very proud moment, that you've been even just a little part of that. And so yeah, it's cool.
What is that experience like as a head coach, getting to see those singers put on that singlet and achieve those last milestones in their career?
Definitely emotional for me, right? I'm a little bit more of an emotional person. And so, this is the time of the year that stuff's happening, right? We had senior night, we're wrestling our last couple duels, we're deciding who's going to be going to conference, so who's going to represent us. And it's an emotional time. And it's not because it's sad, it's just because like you get to see all the work these girls put in and day out. And you get to know that like you have prepared them not only to wrestle, their opponent, but you've prepared them to go out in life and just kind of kick ass in anything they do, right? And so I think that is probably the best feeling, but it is also emotional because you're about ready to have to let go, right? That's the hardest thing about being a coach is like you make these relationships and then you have to let them go, let them fly, right? And yeah, it's definitely for me, it's a little bittersweet.
As a head coach, what is it like seeing those wrestlers go on and go into professional wrestling, whether it's for the national team for US or going into like AEW or WWE?
So I never had anyone, I'm obviously a young coach. I've never had anyone go the route of WWE, so I'll have to get back to you on that one if that ever happens. But seeing athletes go on to the next level is awesome, right? I love the idea of preparing them until I can't coach them anymore. Like when they've gotten everything that they need from me, everything that I can give them, I am more than happy to pass them on to the Olympic Training Center or the RTCs or wherever they think they need to go to continue to grow. I think that sometimes you do have to go to grow. Like I know I can't be some of these girls as coaches forever, right? They might need someone different. And so when they go on to wrestle for the USA team or get those opportunities, I'm just proud of them, right? It's like it's awesome that they finally have reached that level and that they're going to continue to go after that dream. And because the college and the Olympic level are so close, I think more girls should do it. And so, yeah, I'm always going to support that. I'm never going to be like a selfish coach that wants to keep girls around here, right? It's awesome if they want to stick around and train for a little bit, but I just know at a time, there's a time that they have to go to grow. And if they want those goals, like I'm going to have to release them and let them, go get coached by someone else and hear a different voice. And, I'm always gonna be their number one fan, because we've spent a lot of time together. So.
What have been some of the things that you've been able to accomplish so far as a head coach?
I mean, I had a really good first year, right? Like I fell into this program where there's a good foundation. There's just some things that I needed to change as far as culture and expectations. But once I did that, it was pretty smooth selling last year. We won all of our duels. We won national duels. We won a national team title. And so those things are awesome. Those things are so fun. And not even for me, but for those girls that got to do that last year, it was like a lot of them were fifth year seniors, that COVID seniors, right? They had been around for a while. And so to be able to lead them in that was very rewarding to watch the excitement, right? It's almost like I did it again, right? For the first time. But more than that, I would say as a head coach, I'm just my biggest accomplishment is probably just the newfound confidence I found in myself, and my ability to lead a team without questioning myself. You never know when you're assistant, when you actually get put in the role, like how you're going to be when it comes to making big decisions or dealing with the things that you don't think about when you're a coach, the tough conversations and things like that. And so for me, I think that's what I'm most proud of is just this woman I've become that can lead these girls and just create this atmosphere and just love no matter what. If that's all I accomplish, during my career in coaching, without the national titles, I think I've lived a pretty purposeful life. And so I'm pretty happy with that.
What are some of your future plans for the Southern Oregon's program moving forward?
Keep winning some national titles, keep growing people, keep giving people opportunities. I would love to see more of our girls start making world teams as I continue to grow this, right? Giving them the confidence because some of them they're at the point where they could do it. It's just believing in themselves. So, taking them to those tournaments to be able to get themselves on world teams. I do want to get an RTC going here, and make it a really good training spot for anyone who wants to stick around that's a senior level athlete. And so those are some ideas I have, but the first and foremost focus is just creating good people, right, to send out into the world. And I think if I'm focusing on that, the wrestling will come along with it.
What advice would you give those incoming freshmen entering their first year of college women's wrestling?
Uh, don't blink because it goes really fast, right? I tell the girls that like one day you're showing up as a freshman moving in, and the next day you're crying at graduation, right? Wishing you had more time. And as silly as that sounds, it's true. I think that when you're in it, it's easy to get stressed out. It's easy to feel like, oh my gosh, the world's coming down on me, but it's the easiest part of your life. You get to be selfish. You get to go to school and wrestle and literally hang out with your buddies all the time. And if I could go back, I would go back. That's why I've never left. That's why I'm a head coach, right? That's why I'm a college coach, is because I love this time of people's lives, this growth period. And so yeah, that would be my advice is don't blink, it goes fast, and don't take things too seriously because you get one chance to do this for 4 to 5 years, and then you have to go get a big girl job and become a mom or do something else with your life. So yeah, definitely just enjoy it when it's here.
What advice would you give those college wrestlers out there looking to go into professional wrestling, whether it's the national team or WWE?
I would say depending on route, like if we're talking the USA team, just have confidence that, you are just as good as those USA athletes, I guess, the ones that are at the training center or the ones that are on the team. The gap isn't that big, right? There's not a huge gap between college and that that level. And so the biggest thing for me is like believing, for me to give them would be just believe in yourself and believe in your training and know that like those girls a lot of times are just waiting for someone to take that spot, right? They're not expecting it, right? They're just hanging out at the top. And as college athletes, you're conditioned, you practice hard, you know the ropes, and as long as you believe in yourself, you're going to be right in there. As far as WWE, I would say just like with anything else, wrestling prepares you to be good at anything you decide to go into, right? Everything's going to take, work ethic, time management, mental toughness, right? And so if WWE is what you decide to go into, awesome, right? Go do it with confidence and work hard at it, just like you worked hard at your college career, right? In the wrestling realm, and you're going to be just fine. I think that would be my biggest advice.
What advice would you give those assistant coaches out there looking to get started in being an assistant coach on the women's wrestling side?
Uh, to fully immerse yourself in the process and don't rush it. I think that, like I said at the beginning of this conversation, I think I did a very good job with that. I took my time. I didn't jump into a head position too quickly. I mean, with as fast as women wrestling is growing, they're always looking for head coaches, right? But you have to know that being a head coach and being a coach in general is different than wrestling yourself. There's a lot more that goes into it. So if you think that just because you're a good wrestler, you're going to be a good coach, that's false. That's not true at all. And it continues to prove itself time and time again, right? And so fully take the time to be an assistant, take the time to learn, and understand that a little bit of what we do is wrestling, right? My head coach used to say about 10% is wrestling, 90% is the other crap that we deal with, right? And you have to love people because most of it is managing people and, spending time counseling people. Like if you just want to wrestle and teach wrestling moves, it's probably being a head coach or being an assistant coach, you're going to find out isn't going to be the best. Like you might as well just volunteer if you want to do that because that's not the job, right? The job is like the stuff that no one sees, the hours in my office, talking to athletes, talking them off the ledge. It's the phone conversations to recruits and talking to parents, and it's that stuff that makes up most of the job. And so my advice would be immerse yourself in it, see if it's something you want to do. If you decide that you love all parts of being a coach, then go after it and make it what you want it to be. When you're a coach, you kind of get to lead your team however you want. So that would be my advice.
What advice would you give those head coaches such as yourself looking to build their own program and build their own legacy in women's wrestling?
I think the biggest thing would be decide what's most important to you, right? And I have to bring this back a lot to my like why I do this, right? Because it's really, really easy to get caught up in, especially for me, because I've been on such good teams, like winning national titles and, winning these awards or whatever. But when I come back to my why, it has nothing to do with winning, right? It has to do with just helping athletes and people break the cycle of whatever they struggle with and helping them come out the other end of it and giving them an opportunity. And so decide why you're coaching. If you're coaching just to win national titles, well, good luck because you're going to struggle, right? But if you have a bigger why and you have something that really is purposeful to you, that's where you start building your legacy, right? Like I know that everyone who knows me is going to know that I love these athletes and I love these people, right? And that I'm going to be the first one calling them when they have a baby and when they get married. And it's way more than wrestling, right? And I think any of my athletes or my people would tell you that, right? Is that, that of course I love winning national titles and I'm competitive and crazy, but at the end of the day, I want them to know that I just love them. And that's my legacy, right? Is like, that's my purpose is ministering to these people and helping them in life because life is hard. And so yeah, that would be my thing is like figure out why you're doing it and then build your legacy off of that.
That's great advice. Where can my listeners find you at on social media along with the Southern Oregon Women's Wrestling Program?
So for the most part, we're on Instagram and Facebook, both myself and our women's wrestling program. I think if you just, search Southern Oregon University Women's Wrestling, you're gonna find us on Instagram. There'll be a picture of our team, and we love to post funny videos and just kind of show the realness of our team, right? And not a lot of it's edited crazy or anything like that. It's pretty real, pretty raw, pretty goofy. So you can find us on there, and then on Facebook, it connects our Instagram account to our Facebook. And then the same with me. My full name's Gabrielle Weyhrich. I think that's my Instagram tag or whatever. So if you search that, you'll find me, and you'll see that my life's a little bit more than just wrestling. I have a couple dogs, and I like to do other fun things as well. And yeah, so that's where you can find me.
Thank you again, Coach Gabrielle Weyhrich, for your interview and best luck in your future at Southern Oregon as the head women's wrestling coach.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Instagram and Brandon Sports Talk Twitter at @talk_Brandon. And you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Coach, for your interview and best luck in your future.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.